I wasn't supposed to be at the Bransford estate that day. The event was strictly family, an intimate garden brunch celebrating their son's engagement to a girl who sparkled like her diamond ring. I hadn't seen her before, but the way Mrs. Bransford clung to her arm told me everything. She was the future of their empire. I stood on the edge of the marble terrace, trying not to feel the weight of the stairs digging into my back. My long, dark hair blew gently in the spring breeze as I held the gift bag in my hands. Inside, a small handmade scrapbook I'd spent weeks putting together for Daniel, my adoptive brother. Well, former brother now, I suppose. Ava, came the cold, clipped voice of Veronica Bransford as she stepped forward in heels that didn't dare touch a single blade of grass. You weren't invited. I straightened my posture and looked her in the eye. I just wanted to wish Daniel well. Your presence here is inappropriate, she said through a tight smile. This is a private celebration. Family only. I was family, I said quietly. Was, she echoed sharply, just loud enough for the surrounding guests to catch it. Your adoption was a charitable act. Temporary. And it's time you accepted that you don't belong in this world anymore. A few gasps floated in the air like dandelion fluff. Daniel, who had once sworn we'd be siblings for life, stood next to his fiancée without saying a word. His face was blank. I couldn't tell if it was shame or indifference. I reached into the bag and pulled out the envelope. My hands didn't shake, not this time. I thought you might say that, I said, my voice calm. But before I go, there's something you should see. I handed the envelope to Veronica. She glanced down, uninterested, until she saw the logo stamped on the front. Then her face lost all its colour. Daniel frowned. Mom? Veronica hesitated, then yanked open the flap and pulled out the documents. Her eyes flicked rapidly across the page. I could see it. The moment she read the name, the moment the truth unravelled like thread in her hands. Where did you get this? She asked, her voice suddenly dry. I turned toward the steps that led into the estate. I think it's time you met my real parents. And right on cue, the doors opened. Standing there side by side were two figures that made every jaw on that terrace drop. The crowd parted like water around them. Richard and Elena Lancaster, titans of philanthropy, owners of one of the oldest fortunes on the East Coast. Power, elegance, grace. They wore it like tailored silk. Elena smiled, eyes locked on me. Hello, sweetheart. I stepped forward, tears threatening to rise, but I blinked them away. Hi, Mom. Dad. Gasps exploded like fireworks. Someone dropped their champagne glass. Veronica's mouth opened, but no words came. Richard's voice was steady. We've been looking for our daughter for over 20 years, and now we finally have her back. And just like that, everything changed. The Bransfords had built their world on appearance, polished, curated, and controlled. But nothing could prepare them for the chaos that erupted once the Lancasters claimed me as their daughter. Impossible, Veronica muttered as she stalked into the living room later that evening. Her husband, Thomas Bransford, poured himself a double scotch by the fireplace. It's a publicity stunt. That girl is nothing. DNA doesn't lie, Thomas said, rubbing his forehead. And their lawyers already sent over confirmation. She was ours, Veronica snapped. We raised her. You fostered her, Thomas corrected. There was never a finalised adoption. You know that. Veronica whirled on him. We gave her everything, clothes, school etiquette. And then cut her off when she turned 18, he said coldly. Don't pretend we're saints. Meanwhile, I sat in the Lancasters' sunroom across town, wrapped in a robe that probably cost more than my old apartment's rent. Eleanor sat beside me, gently brushing my hair. We searched for you for so long, she said, her voice full of quiet pain. The orphanage told us you'd been placed with a family. They refused to release details. Richard walked in with a thick binder. Turns out the Bransfords had friends in the department, buried the paperwork, never reported the connection. I stared at them. You're really... My parents? He handed me the binder. Inside were pictures, hospital forms, baby photos with matching birthmarks. It was undeniable. Tears welled up. I always thought I was unwanted. Eleanor pulled me into a hug. Never. You were taken from us, but now we have you back. I nodded, burying my face in her shoulder. For the first time in years, I felt safe. But peace wouldn't last long, because Veronica Bransford wasn't done, and she had one last move to play. 2 weeks later, the story broke across every major outlet. Lancaster heiress found after decades, adoptive family under investigation. Suddenly, I was everywhere. Interviews, photos, charity events, the media loved it. A Cinderella story, lost and found. But behind the glamour, a storm was brewing. Veronica had filed a lawsuit. Defamation, her lawyer barked. False claims, emotional damages, breach of privacy. Richard and Eleanor remained calm. Let her try, Richard said. We have the truth. But it wasn't just about the lawsuit. Veronica had leaked a private video, an old clip from when I was 17, struggling with anxiety in the Bransford home. I was crying, screaming into a pillow, clearly in distress. She framed it as violent behaviour, suggesting I had always been unstable. The media pounced. Was Ava Bransford ever fit for elite society? Daniel reached out to me for the first time since the party. I didn't know she'd release that, he said. I'm sorry. I stared at his message for a long time before replying. Too late. That night, I sat with Elena as she held my hand. They're scared, she said. They're losing power, so they'll attack your character. But people are believing it, I whispered. Richard walked in. Then it's time we showed them who you really are. He placed a single sheet of paper on the table. It was an invitation to the annual Lancaster Foundation Gala. Guest of honour, Ava Lancaster, me, the daughter they thought they could erase. But this time, I was writing my own story. The night of the gala arrived faster than I was ready for. I stood before the tall mirror in the Lancaster estate dressing room, barely recognising myself. The silk gown clung like it was made just for me. Midnight blue, floor-length with intricate beadwork that caught the light like stars. Eleanor stood behind me, adjusting the clasp of a delicate diamond necklace. You look like royalty, she whispered, a warm smile in her reflection. And tonight, the world will see who you truly are. Downstairs, the estate had transformed. Glittering chandeliers reflected in polished marble floors. Cameras clicked as limousines pulled up, and society's elite glided inside, decked in designer gowns and sharp tuxedos. But the moment I entered, everything hushed. Whispers followed me like perfume. That's her. The lost Lancaster. She was raised by them? I kept my chin high. This time I wouldn't shrink. Richard took the stage mid-evening, commanding silence with a simple nod. Tonight is not just about giving, he began. It's about recognizing truth, strength, resilience. Please welcome my daughter Ava Lancaster. The applause thundered, but I still spotted the sour faces in the back, Veronica and Thomas Bransford, standing stiff in designer bitterness. I stepped up to the podium, fingers gripping the edge. My name is Ava. For most of my life, I didn't know where I came from. I was raised in a home where I was tolerated, not loved, shaped, not nurtured. But now I know who I am, not because of wealth or bloodlines, but because of truth. And truth is power. Gasps. More applause. A few even stood. But as I stepped down from the stage, I felt it. A presence, cold and smug. Veronica brushed past me, her voice low and venomous. This little fairy tale won't last. You're still just the help in a ball gown. I didn't flinch. I didn't reply. But the next chapter of this story would crush her lies for good. The following week, while unpacking more boxes from the estate's archive, I found it. An old, dust-covered journal belonging to my birth grandmother. Tucked inside was a letter, sealed, yellowed with time. I almost set it aside, but something told me to read it. The letter, dated 1989, was addressed to Richard Lancaster. Dearest son, if anything ever happens to me, find Ava. Your sister made terrible mistakes. She gave up her baby and swore us to secrecy. But I couldn't leave this world knowing the truth might die with me. The child is with a friend of hers, someone named Veronica Bransford. I don't trust her. She's power-hungry and controlling. Promise me, you'll find the girl and bring her home. My chest tightened. I read it again. Veronica knew. She hadn't just taken me in for charity, she'd known exactly who I was. And hid the truth. I rushed to Richard's study, breathless. She knew, I said, slapping the letter onto the desk. She hid me from you. Richard's eyes scanned the page. He sat back slowly, jaw clenched. This changes everything. Eleanor walked in, reading over his shoulder. She'll face charges, interfering with parental rights, fraud, maybe worse. But I didn't want legal revenge. I wanted her exposed, publicly. Richard nodded as if reading my mind. Then we'll do it your way. That's when we made the plan. An interview. National. Live. A chance to set the record straight before Veronica had time to spin another lie. But what none of us knew was that Veronica had her own bombshell. One that could rip the Lancasters apart from the inside. The day of the live interview arrived. I sat in the studio under bright lights, microphone clipped to my dress, palms sweating slightly. The host was polished and warm, easing into the conversation. So, Ava, she said with a smile, tell us what it's like to suddenly become one of the most talked about women in America. I smiled gently. It's surreal. But what matters most is that I've found my real family, my roots, and now, my voice. We talked about my life with the Bransfords, the abuse veiled as discipline, the love that felt like performance. And what would you say, she asked carefully, to the Bransfords today? I looked straight into the camera. I forgive them, not because they deserve it, but because I do. I won't carry their bitterness in my blood any longer. Backstage, Elena wiped away a tear. Richard gave a proud nod, but as the show wrapped and applause faded, a producer rushed over. There's a woman asking to speak. She says it's urgent. I turned, and there she was. Veronica. Her eyes were darker than I remembered, ringed in desperation, not mascara. I need to speak with you, she said, ignoring the crew. I hesitated. Why? She reached into her coat, pulling out a folded letter. Because your grandmother was wrong. I didn't just hide you. I protected you. I blinked. Protected me from what? She looked around, lowering her voice. From the man who thinks he's your father. My breath hitched. What are you talking about? She stepped closer. Richard Lancaster isn't your biological father. The room spun. You're lying. I wish I was, she whispered, but there's a reason I kept the truth buried. Your real father was dangerous, powerful, and if he finds out you're alive... She stopped. He'll come for you.